Hey everybody, Jennifer Louden, jenniferlouden.com. This is about how to move from writing for yourself for writing for others. Now, if you're anything like me, maybe you can't really think or work out a plan or decide a lot in your life, at least at any depth, without writing about it, right? For me, that kind of personal writing, figuring out, making plans, bringing stuff up from my unconscious and giving it a chance to have the light of day, that's a powerful practice for me. And I do it several times a week, and I do it once a week with hundreds and hundreds of women that I work with. So that kind of personal writing is so integral to me. It's not to whine or refresh the same old problems, rehash. It's to bring things to the forefront that need seeing, to choose where am I going to put my time and my creative energy? How am I really going to make writing my memoir a priority this week? And it's to wrestle with where am I out of alignment with what I'm eating or how I'm over providing for someone, what's being neglected. There's a lot of studies now that kind of personal writing is incredibly beneficial. It can help us be more successful, it's stress relieving, it's good for our mental health, it can be great for our spiritual growth, so yay for that kind of personal writing. But sometimes what I see is people want to do that kind of personal writing and they want to transition to writing for others, to writing for an audience. And sometimes I see that people don't know how to do that. So that's what I'm making this video about. How do you make that passage from writing for yourself to writing for others? Again, not neglecting or any way saying, hey, I can't write for myself, saying that's so totally useful. Well, the first thing that I'd invite you to do is actually to feel, and this can be a regular practice, it's just a micro practice. It takes 30 seconds or a minute. Feel why you want to write for others. This is such a good preliminary step because it can give you so much courage and energy. It's not about coming up with a mission statement or, a clever little phrase or, getting a tattoo. It's really just about feeling it. Feel that urge to write a novel that makes people weep or see the world differently like you have with fiction that has changed you. Or feel what it's motivating you to write those poems that crack open the present moment. Or feel what's motivating you, again, beyond words, deep in the body, the desire that's motivating you to shape your story into a memoir. This is something I'm doing right now. It's the most difficult and most transformational writing I've ever done. Or maybe you want to build a side hustle as a copywriter and write for causes or products that are really making the world a better place. Feel that again. Not in an intellectual way, but with your gut. 30 seconds, a minute. Maybe you're really curious about something in the world, a problem or an issue, and you want to learn about it and you want to write about it, but you really know that it has to be connected to an audience. You have to teach them something. And feel that motivation. I certainly know that. I wrote 7 self-help books from that motivation. Curiosity, problem, wanting to teach. Yeah? So step number 1 to make the passage, and you need to repeat it, maybe every time you sit down to write, a few moments of feeling, and not trying to make it neat and not trying to label it. And that opens the door to make the next step of writing from an audience, which will be easier. And that is to choose 1 or 2 projects to write into. Now, some of us need more than 1 project to work on at a time, right? One project can feel like, oh, I'm having ideas and I don't know where to put them. But I'll tell you from experience that if you have more than 2 projects, your head might explode. But more honestly and importantly, you may never get any writing done because you'll be too diffuse, right? You can certainly have a notebook where you write down ideas for those other projects, but really beginning to choose is where we begin to create a container to actually get the writing done. And what could those projects be? They don't have to be huge or overwhelming. They could be book reviews for Goodreads or Pinterest or Facebook, an op-ed piece in a personal essay, or maybe you want to write a variety of scenes into a novel out of order, or scenes from your memoir. Maybe you want to write an op-ed. Pick something, make it clear, give it a container, scenes for a novel is enough, and then begin to focus on writing for that. And notice that these kinds of writing all have an audience, right? So you're beginning to do what I call stretching to connect. And what is stretching to connect? Well, when we write for ourselves in that personal writing that's so important and beneficial, I don't have to explain anything to anybody else. We're in our heads, and that's the only place we have to be. But when we stretch to connect with others, they're not in our heads. So we actually have to describe the setting or the weather or how people look. We have to use language and placeholders and time and all kinds of things to help those people come in and experience what we did. That's the most basic part of stretching to connect to an audience. So first is the feeling of why you want, letting yourself savor it. Then there's choosing a form that's going to connect with someone else. And then it's beginning to realize, wow, the reader's not in my head. I have to get outside my head and outside of my experience so someone else can they taste it, see it, hear it, feel it. Or what if you didn't experience and you're making it up in fiction, same thing. Poetry, same thing. Here's a couple micro practices to help with that. Ask yourself, how would I write this to connect to someone outside my head? You might need to slow down and look for sensory details that bring what's most important to the story alive. Not every sensory detail, you'll get lost and overwhelmed. But what are the sensory details that will really help your reader be there, understand and experience the key ideas? Another micro practice, see your writing as having a life outside of you. Your writing has to be able to thrive without you there to say, oh, but let me explain. Let me give you a little oxygen, right? Just like a child, a pet, a plant, a garden. So beginning to see it as separate from you can be, how do I get it to stand on its own? Super helpful micro practice for stretching to connect. Another one is writing scenes. You know what a scene is. You see it in the movies and the TV. Action happens in one place and one time. In writing, it could be a sentence long, it could be pages long, it could be most of a book if you read Proust. So you know what a scene is, and it helps give you a container to focus on and helps you stretch to connect to a reader because you're like, oh, right, I'm here. How do I describe the way Jen's hands flit through the air when she talks? And again, in scenes, sensory details can really help you do it. Like, think about the sentence, it was hot and it made it hard to think, versus the sun burned into the top of my head, right at the fontanelle, that soft spot that always fascinated me on babies. It was like the sun wanted to get inside my brain and vaporize every memory of Michael. And my sinuses begin to throb. Some sensory, you're feeling it. You're in my head, you're feeling what's happening in my body, but there's also some abstract ideas there, right? So we're weaving two together, hopefully stretching to connect. Sometimes writing to a reader can be really helpful to make this passage from self to other writing. And you can have I have up to 3 readers in mind. And this is especially useful if you're writing personal growth, thought leader, business books. It can save you so much time. Because you're like, I have these 3 people lined up. What are their problems? What are their issues? What don't they understand? You can interview actual people. And that can really help you figure out what information, stories, anecdotes, structure will help this book work. Or this piece, or this essay, this article, this blog post, etc. But for some writers, having a reader in the room is cause for danger, Will Robinson, you know? You start thinking about, what is that reader going to think? Oh my God, I can't write that. Oh, that's so embarrassing. Is this like, are they going to like this? And you can just completely freeze up, especially true of a memoir. So in which case, put that reader outside your writing room, maybe build a lovely stone wall or build a moat around your writing space. Write for some readers someday. Keep it vague, but keep it there. Somewhere, sometime, someone's going to be reading this. So you still get that stretch to connect thing, but it's not right in your face. So play with reader for different projects and different moods to help you move ahead. The biggest obstacle I see get in this way, in this transition, this passage from writing for self to writing for others consistently, is the fear of owning what you want to say. Owning your ideas and experience. And my shorthand for that is permission to own your voice. Not so much that we have one writer's voice or for our whole career. Our voice changes as we grow. It changes for different projects. We can play with different voices. But the essential part of having a voice is saying, I have permission to say this. I give myself permission to say that. So we own what we care about. We own the themes that make us angry or curious or intent. And ways to do this. Well, one is to write a lot. The other is to share your writing with others and to generate a lot of new material, not by editing, going back and perfecting, but moving forward to the end of whatever you're writing, getting a shitty, full first draft. Another micro practice I love for this is to tell yourself, I own it by telling it. I own it by sharing it. I own it by telling it. I own it by sharing it. I've seen so many of my students and clients make this passage from writing for self, loving writing, reading about writing, to actually writing. That's not easy, but it's so stinking fun. So start by choosing one or two things to write that have a form for others. Focus on finishing that shitty first draft. Feel what's motivating you. Stretch to connect. And see that writing as needing to be made whole enough to stand on its own. Own your story. And you just wait and see how much you grow and your possibilities to impact your spot, your corner, your path-shaped slice of the world. I so hope this was useful. Thanks for listening.